Hello everyone, I'm Francine Hernandez with Your Daily Practice, and we are doing our second video today for Pilates in Layers. Thank you for watching. Today we're going to look at the Supine Spine Twist. So the Supine Spine Twist focuses on the abdominals, pelvic lumbar stabilization, and spinal rotation. And all of these things are key to a good warm-up. So I usually do the Supine Spine Twist maybe the second or third exercise in my Pilates mat class. This is also a great exercise to do, however, in the evening or in the morning when you want to just wake up your body a little bit without too much loading of the spine. So supine means on your back, so that's where we're going to start. And we're going to go through a couple variations, and like last time with the pelvic curl video, some of the variations are going to be more basic and others are going to be a little bit more challenging. So we'll start with the basic. We're going to take the arms out to the side. Now with any of these variations, you can slide the arms out further all the way to a T. And what that does is it gives a stretch through the shoulder blades, the collarbones, so you get the back of the upper body stretching and as well as the front. But we're going to keep I'm going to keep the arms here. We're going to take both inner thighs and press them together. I'm going to keep my feet on the floor. So as I start my inhale, I'm going to shift my legs over to the side, just halfway. And what I'm doing is I'm picking up that top foot so that it's stacked right on top of the bottom one. So if I wiggle my toes, you can see that my feet are stacked. And again, I'm going to try to gently encourage that opposite shoulder blade down onto the mat. I'm going to use my abdominals, flatten the back towards the mat as I come back to center. I'll do the same thing to the other side. So encouraging the opposite shoulder blade down. I shift over and bringing the legs back to center. The small of the back goes to the mat. So this is great for somebody that maybe doesn't quite have the strength yet in their abdominals to hold the legs up in our tabletop position when the knees are over the hips. Also for somebody that's being very cautious with rotation for any sort of spinal injury or maybe some spinal weakness. Let's bring the legs back to center. We're going to go to more the classic supine spine twist, or the version I learned at first, and we're going to take the small of the back down again. Abdominals are deep. We're taking one leg into our tabletop and then the opposite leg as well. So we're going to shift the legs over to the right side. But what I'd like you to do is glance at your knees and make sure that the knees are in a line, that they're stacked, so that one knee is not in front of the other. And what that does is it encourages the opposite hip to really work to lift to come up. And then we'll come back to center. We'll take it to the other side. Same thing. I'm lifting, I'm leading with that top hip a little bit so that my knees stay in a nice line. And then I'm coming back to center. Another way to make this a little bit more challenging is when I come over to the side, I pause here. I'm going to stretch both legs out. And as I do that, now it becomes a little bit more challenging to hold. I also like to take a little flex. It feels nice to stretch the back of my knees and ankles and then point through the tops of the feet. And again, flex and point. And then bending the legs and bringing the legs back to center. Go to the other side now and we'll do the same thing. Stretching the legs out and flexing and pointing. And one more, flex and point. Bringing the knees in and coming back to center. Now, another way to make this more challenging is really how you cue it if you're an instructor, or how you cue it to yourself if you're doing this at home. When I take the legs over to the side, we already talked about the knees stacking, but coming back to center, I want to use that outside leg to really push the inside leg out of the way. And already you're going to feel more work in the core as you cue yourself to do the exercise that way. Same thing to the other side. So as I shift the legs over, I'm going to use the outside leg to push the inside leg back to center. And then we're going to bring the legs down and rest. So the last variation is with my favorite tool, the foam roller. So I'm just going to bring it in. I've got it right here. And I'm going to bring my hips up. Now it's important that for this exercise, your low back, your lumbar spine is not on the foam roller. It's the sacral area, so a little bit lower towards the tailbone. So we're balancing on here. It should not feel that it's in that curvature of the back. We can keep our hands anyway on the foam roller that feels best to you. I'm going to keep mine on the outside. And now when I take my legs over to the side, I'm going to feel a little pressure of that foam roller into my glute, the outside of my hip. And if I'm really tight in that area, it's going to actually feel good. Kind of one of those hurt so good if you're really tight there. And then again, use that cue for yourself. Outside leg pushes the inside leg back to center. Over to the other side, same thing. I'm still encouraging my shoulder blades down to the mat, spreading the collarbones wide, and pressing the legs back to center. And you can go ahead and do the same version we did, stretching the legs out, giving yourself that dorsiflexion and that plantar flexion or flex and point. And over to the other side, same thing, stretching the legs out and dorsiflex and plantar flex and bending the knees, bringing the legs back to center. Bringing the feet back down onto the mat, lifting the hips up, and then just use that pelvic curl that we worked on last week. Articulate down through the spine as you rest your hips to the mat. So I hope that gave you some ideas for your supine spine twist. Maybe refreshed your memory on some cues that you haven't learned in a little while, or you haven't used in a little while rather, and reminding you that don't forget about the abdominals in that exercise. Even though it's a lovely stretch for the low back and for the hips, the abdominals really help control the movement. So don't forget to cue it or to cue yourself with that. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for our second video, Pilates in Layers, and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Bye.